Okay, so welcome and happy National Engineering Month that officially started today. So this webinar is going through the Mission to Mars program and specifically the colony building activity. So today's webinar, we're going to try and go through it as quickly as possible so we don't take up too much of your time. So what we're going to start with is a quick introduction to who we are and the general background to this program. Then we'll go through the key messaging guidelines that we're trying to get across to the participants, the program timing, what's in the kit, the activities, and then we'll just quickly wrap up everything at the end. So this program is now in its second year. We started it last year and we were just kind of a random group of people. We didn't really belong anywhere, and we kind of got adopted into the Engineers of Tomorrow part of Engineers Without Borders. This year we have increased our reach from 29 workshops that we ran last year just in the Toronto area out to around 85 workshops across Ontario, which is an incredible achievement. Currently we're the second largest program in terms of number of events across the province, and we definitely reach further than any other group. The one that's running more sessions is also an Engineers Without Borders program, so that's a pretty incredible achievement. And our extended team includes around 81 people, which again is absolutely outstanding to have that level of commitment from so many people, especially such a wide range of people that range from all sorts of different engineering organizations, from Professional Engineers Ontario, Engineers Without Borders, OSET, OSPE, Women in Engineering Societies, universities, and all sorts of other places that I can't list off the top of my head. A huge thank you to everyone for getting involved, because we couldn't do this without all of those people. So this program came about last year to kind of fill in a gap. We found that I am a Girl Guide leader. I work with the Brownies specifically, so the 7 and 8-year-olds. And I was really excited when I started as a guider, because I saw the STEM part and thought, wow, I can really sink my teeth into this. And then I saw the actual requirements and was really disappointed. The requirement for the Brownies for 2 years of program for engineering is to build a tall structure. And I look at my girls and I think they can do better than that. A tall structure isn't really that representative of engineering. For one, it doesn't show the diversity. It doesn't get across any of the messaging that I'm going to go through in a minute. The other thing is, while there are a whole bunch of organizations creating incredible outreach programs, for me as a guider, to be able to take my girls to those programs when they're running on a Saturday or in an evening, I have to fill out a stack of paperwork an inch deep, send it into head office, get permission forms from all of the parents. Not all of the girls are going to come. And the ones that do are the ones that are most interested in the science, technology, engineering, math anyway, which kind of means that we're missing those kids that maybe aren't already interested, that we have the most chance to make an impact on. And that's what we kind of wanted to change. So by bringing the program to the regular meeting, where the kids are coming at a regular time to a regular place, so nothing changes for them, we're able to make sure that we interact with all of those other kids that maybe aren't so sure of what engineering is, and really bring it to the forefront of their minds and show that there is a place for them in engineering. So as I mentioned, we are part of Engineers of Tomorrow, which is part of Engineers Without Borders Canada. So the aim of Engineers of Tomorrow is really to work on public outreach, and particularly changing the public's perception of engineering. And that we try and do through the outreach to the youth and the general public. So we're trying to change those stereotypes about engineering, that we're all reclusive, we all enjoy math, science, everything is very, very technical, we're not creative. We want to change all of that. We want to show them that, you know, engineering has evolved. We include a diverse range of people and interests, and there is a place for them. And things that we do through Engineers of Tomorrow are things like the National Engineering Month. They organize everything. Also the Engineers in Residence program, which connects engineers with a single classroom on a regular basis to continually bring that idea of engineering to the same group of kids over a period of time. And also programs like this, Booths in Public Spaces, I'm really trying to bring across that storytelling. So with respect to messaging, the main aim that we're trying to get across is why engineering, as opposed to what is engineering. And that is a different type of thing. We all know that engineering includes maths and science, but that's really a means to the end. That is the means to achieving the why goal. So the why is things like your personal stories, the values and emotions, and the purpose of what it is that you're aiming to achieve at the end. So that isn't necessarily the same as what. And we try and keep it very simple. Especially with this program, we work with a whole range of different ages and different abilities. So we really want to keep the concepts simple, light, and fun. This program, especially working with the Girl Guides this year, it's not school. We don't want it to be school. It needs to be fun. It needs to be exciting. We don't want to associate engineering with something that's dull and boring, because that's not what engineering is, or at least that's what we definitely don't want to get that across. So we're trying to change the messaging to kind of modernize it. And what we find is that there's this huge pool of kids that could choose engineering, but aren't, because they don't really know what it is, or the messaging that's coming across doesn't interest them. Whereas there's also this other group of students who will choose engineering without any intervention. Doesn't matter what we do, they're already there. They already know that this is the right thing for them, and they're going to pursue that regardless. The problem is that a lot of the current messaging, things like, you're really good at math and science, you should be an engineer. Engineering equals rockets and robots and things like that. Those tend to be focused at those students who are already interested in that stuff, and kind of alienates all of those other students, so that we're not gaining that diverse entry into the profession. So what we're aiming to do is really change up that messaging, promote all sorts of different types of messages that will appeal to a bigger range of people. So perhaps a different subset of that greater group of students who might choose engineering might be interested in the human factors. So they want to help people, and we can explain that engineering will help them achieve that. Or maybe they're interested in the environment and want some way that they can reduce the impact that people have on the environment, and we can show them that they can do that through being part of engineering. So there's a whole bunch of messages that we want to get across. These can really be summarized. And the first one is diversity. Not just that we have diversity in the range of different disciplines in engineering, but also that we need diversity in the people coming into engineering. We need people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different genders. We need all of those different people to give their points of view in order to help progress the profession. We also want to explain that engineering does shape the future. 10 years ago, we didn't have iPads. When I was a kid, I didn't have a computer, especially not at the age that my brownies are. And engineering has helped us move forward in time. We don't just follow the curve, we lead the curve. Engineers are creative. We're not stuck in a little box with all of our rules. We can think outside of that box and really turn those great ideas into reality. We care about people's health. We care about their safety. We care about their happiness. We really want to help people and improve their daily life. And we want to make a world of difference. So all of those messages are really effective at getting that great idea about what engineers really are today in the modern world across to the kids and get them excited about what engineering can offer them. So that's really the messaging in a nutshell. So looking forward to who it is that we're going to be working with this year. This year we are just working with the Girl Guides of Canada. To head off the obvious question, yes, we are looking to work with other groups, definitely. And we are in the process of trying to bring Scouts Canada on board as well, ready for next year. Hopefully we'll have that in place for National Engineering Month 2016. So Girl Guides of Canada is broken into 5 branches. For this colony building activity, we are only looking at the oldest 2 branches, which are the Pathfinders and Rangers from age 12 up to 18. And the reason for that is because this activity is possibly a little bit too complicated for the younger girls. It requires a little bit more logical thinking. And we're starting to draw on more of the software engineering kind of feel for this, and kind of get them a little bit more excited about the potential that has. So to start off, the most important thing is your timing. So obviously we ask you if you can arrive 10 to 15 minutes before the startup, mostly to make sure that you can find your way to where you need to be. If it's in a school, it may be in a gym, in a specific location. We want to make sure that you can find that in time, and also make contact with the guider. You can survey your surroundings, figure out how you want to set everything up. If you need tables set up, if you want them to work on the floor, however you want the area set up, whatever you feel comfortable with. Also, all of these groups do have some sort of timing for opening and closing ceremonies at the beginning and end of the time limit. So you really want to make sure that you account for that time as well. Now for the Pathfinder Rangers, they do have a 2-hour meeting usually, but we recommend that you try and limit the program to around 1 hour and 15 to kind of 1.5 hours at the maximum. It's always better to run under than run over, because particularly at this age, they'll probably have questions, and it gives you some time to interact with them on a more personal level, answer their specific questions with regards to maybe the route into engineering from high school. The youngest girls will be around 12, so they've still got time to choose the maths and science if they are interested in engineering at this point. And if you have really a lot of extra time and no one has any questions, they can always go back and refine based on the discussion that you had with them from the first iteration of their design. And of course, make sure that you're flexible with your group. The instructions given are more of a loose guideline. You don't have to follow them to the letter. Be flexible. If you're running out of time for something, adapt an activity, drop it if you really need to. Flexibility in the program and also your own comfort level are the most important things. If you're not comfortable with one of the activities from reading through it, feel free to make it whatever it is that you think you'll be able to present more effectively. That's really the most important thing. So what's in your kit? So in your kit, you will have a facilitator program guide that has all of the information on each of the activities in it. You'll also have a set of game cards as well, which you can use to play the initial icebreaker game. You'll have the participant instruction sheets. That will be one per team of 3. And that says rover kits, but that should say colony kit. And that is 1 per team again for 3. And also all of the crests. So the National Engineering Month crest. If someone in your group picked up the kit, then you may also have some giveaways. They weren't able to be shipped out because, again, of the cost. Next year we will try and put that in the budget. You won't have tape or glue for this activity either. That is a typo. You don't need tape and glue for the activity. Okay, so the program follows a fairly generic layout. We have a quick introduction that's introducing yourself, followed by the icebreaker game, followed by a little bit of science. In this case, that will also be a little bit more of a game. The main activity, a debriefing wrap-up discussion, and then if you have time, you've got some time to gather some feedback. So the introduction part is really important, introducing yourself. We really want you to focus on the why you do what you do as opposed to what exactly you do. So I'll give a quick example. So, hi, my name is Rose. I'm a mechanical engineer, and for my job, I design sheet metal boxes where I take the PCBs from the hardware engineers and I mount them inside the box using all sorts of nuts and screws. And I have to make sure that they're not going to overheat. And I do that by doing all sorts of heat calculations. And I think that's really interesting. That doesn't sound very interesting, really, does it? Most of them are going to go, sheet metal boxes? That doesn't sound exciting at all. So the other way of doing it is the why. Why am I doing this? So I can say, hi, I'm Rose. I'm a mechanical engineer, and my job is really cool because I work with around 50 other engineers, and our job is to keep you guys safe. So you may have seen some fire alarm systems in your home, in your school, or in buildings out in public, and that's really our job. To design those systems. And I think that's really important because I know that if there ever is an emergency in any of those places, you guys will be able to get out safely. So that time I didn't mention anything about sheet metal. I didn't need to talk about any of the technical parts, but suddenly they get it. They understand why it is that we're doing what we're doing. And if they're interested, they will ask you the questions about, well, what exactly is it that your role is in that team, or how do all of those parts come together? And you can go into more detail if you need to. I would probably recommend that you try and encourage them to leave those questions more to the end, just so that you can get through the rest of the activities. But the intro should really only take a couple of minutes, if possible. So I'm just going to switch on my webcam here. Just so that you can see. Oh, 1 second. Okay. Hi, I'm Rose. So the next activity is the engineering game. So for this, you have a set of cards. Each card has a different type of engineer written on it. So for example, computer engineering, that has a quick picture that's mostly for the younger girls. And on the back, there's a quick description. Now, for this particular activity, all of the girls in your group should be able to read this relatively well, to be able to get a little bit more grasp of what it is that you're going to be doing. So for this, they're going to have to pretend that they are this type of engineer. And then you're going to read out a series of different statements, and you want to ask them whether or not they think that the engineer that they're representing would do that, or whether they wouldn't do that. And you can get them to stand up or separate to different sides of the room, whatever your space allowance is, or whatever your group seems more comfortable with. So for example, you can do, would your engineer wear a lab coat or a hard hat? Get them to split into their different sections. The main aim of this activity is to show that not all engineers do exactly the same thing. There is that diversity, and also the diversity of the different types of engineering. We're not all doing the same thing. We're not all building robots. We're not all working on something physical or tangible. There's a whole range of things that we do. And then we can get in, particularly with this age group, we can get into more complex discussions. So we can do things like, would your engineer design something to help you brush your teeth? So on the outset, they'll probably look at it and go, well, maybe my engineer wouldn't. And then you can maybe have a discussion, definitely ask them to justify why they chose what option they chose. And then also go back and, well, okay, so let's think about this and how it relates to something. So for a toothbrush, maybe you have an engineer that's designing the actual toothbrush. Someone needs to design the process to make the toothbrush. Someone's going to help with the formulation of the chemicals in the toothpaste to make sure that it flows properly when it's being produced. If you use water to brush your teeth, where did the water come from? How did it get from where it came from, get cleaned and get to your tap? How did you stood in the house? How did that house, the structure, come together? How did the toothbrush get from the factory all the way across to the store where you bought it? Was it in a truck, on a road? Did it go over a bridge? How do all of these engineers tie in? So we want to show that engineers actually have a lot of different roles that they play, and a lot of them are behind the scenes that we just kind of take for granted. And we can also pull in some other ones to try and break those stereotypes. I know within Girl Guides there is a song that I hate that uses all sorts of stereotypes that they're probably very used to at this point. So things like, my uncle is an engineer, and then they make the choo-choo action. So they all think that engineers just drive trains. That's all that they do. So we can say, well, would your engineer drive a train? And then they're going to look at their card and say, well, maybe not. Or in some cases, maybe. Maybe they're designing the train and they need to test it. That's also a viable option. There are no right or wrong answers with any of this. We don't need to make them change sides. If they can justify it, you say, okay, fair enough. We want to get them thinking that, you know, there's a whole range of different things. Also, we can tie in some Mars-related stuff. Would your engineer help grow food in space? Would they make sure that the astronaut has clean air to breathe? Things like that you can pull into the conversation. You don't need to go too deep into the conversation. You really want to try and have this as a light icebreaker. Just take around 10 minutes and just ask a few questions and get some discussion flowing. And then we're going to move into a little bit of a different game from Mars Landing. So this is really to do with kind of the software programming side, and get them thinking about kind of some of the logic there. So this is really a game, and it's a version of a game that they may have already played before called Lighthouse. So when we're sending an engineered rocket from Earth to Mars, we don't really rely on someone controlling the rocket with a giant joystick controller anymore, like we would do with like a remote controlled car. Instead, the rocket is usually able to navigate and land by itself using sophisticated computer programs. Really, that program is just a really simple set of commands which tells that computer or rocket to do something specific. So what we're going to do is use the whole space in the room. And first you want to identify a start line, which is going to represent Earth, and a stop line, which is going to represent Mars. So you're going to get 2 volunteers. One person is going to be the rocket, and they're going to start on the start line with their eyes closed or blindfolded. And the second person is going to be a programmer who will have to navigate them from Earth to Mars by giving them the commands that they need. The rest of the players are going to be comets, and they should spread out around the room fairly randomly. They're able to block the path. That's okay. We want them to block the path a little bit. And they're just going to spread out. So the aim is to get the rocket from Earth to Mars without any collisions. So we're going to have 5 commands. The first one is forward, take a step forward. Left, take 1 step left. Right, go right. Back is take 1 step backwards. And also the go command. So the person that's being the rocket can't move until they hear go. So for example, the programmer would have to call forward, go. So you can have a quick run through with that with just 1 command, and try and navigate around. So it'd be forward, go, they do it, and then move on to the next one. The programmer can go with the rocket so that they can see where they need to send them. But we want the rocket to keep their eyes closed. And then we can take that up a notch and say, okay, so the programmer can now call multiple different commands at once. So they could say forward, forward, left, go. And then the rocket needs to follow that set of commands. So you can say, okay, we're going to have 2, or we're going to have 3, or you can let them choose how many. I would limit it to around 3 or 4, just because the rocket's probably going to forget what the whole sequence was. And then we can also take it up another notch if you think that your group is able to cope with that, and say, okay, now the comets can move, but they can only take 1 step, and they can only do that when the command go is set. So that you kind of got that changing atmosphere. So maybe you're going to end up with that collision because they were stepping forward and the comet just happened to come in line all at the same time. So it's really fun. We did have a go with this, and it can be a lot of fun, and the girls will have a great time with it. And the aim of this is to kind of get across that logic idea and show, well, it can be fun and it's not as complicated as it sounds. Okay. So it should be around 10 to 15 minutes. And then we're going to move on to the colony building activity. So this is the main one. So we're going to split the girls into groups of 2 to 3 people, and provide them with a set of materials and an instruction sheet. So the instruction sheet has everything that they need to know on it, and the kit should have everything that they need in there as well. So the general premise of this is along the lines of like the Mars One program, which they may have already heard of, so you can definitely bring that into the discussion. So within the next decade or so, people may actually be living on the surface of Mars. So there's a whole load of really important engineering challenges to get the people to Mars, but there's also some challenges once they're on Mars to keep them alive, healthy, happy, especially since there's a possibility that that journey may be just one way. So this activity is going to be about building the station where the astronauts are going to live and where they're going to work. And that station is going to be built up of a whole range of smaller modules, each of them with a slightly different function. Just like the teams of astronauts, these modules are not all going to arrive on Mars at the same time. They're going to come in separate cargo shipments, spread out over a number of years. So that means planning ahead for the layout of the colony is really, really important to minimize the work needed to put everything together later. So all of those modules are going to be put together by a rover, but they're not all going to be there at the same time. So that's one challenge to keep in mind. In your facilitator handout, there is an advanced challenge. You probably won't ever need that. Really just ignore that. Everything else will be on the main instruction sheet. So I guess, let's see. So we have an arrival schedule on Mars. So the first thing that arrives is the cargo. That's going to deliver a whole range of different modules. Then we're going to have humans, and we're going to have another cargo shipment, then more humans, and another cargo, and then 2 more sets of humans. So it's important to note that when you're looking at assigning people to where they're going to be sleeping, you need to make sure that the living unit that you're assigning them to has actually arrived on Mars by the time they're there. Because if you're assigning them to something that hasn't arrived yet, they're going to be very uncomfortable for a very long time. So we have a range of different modules. We have a control module, we have a greenhouse, kitchen, health block, work areas 1, 2, and 3, an airlock, a living room, and bedrooms. So each of these have a different number of doorways attached to them. So there's only so many connections that they can have to other units. And there's a whole load of different rules. Now to build this, they have 2 different colors of plasticine. So they can use one of the plasticines to build like the main communal modules. So those would be things like the control module, the greenhouse, the kitchen, the health block and work areas, and the living units would be a different color. The bedrooms, those are each associated to a single astronaut, and you have a whole range of little toothpicks. Okay, so this is the kit here. So you have little toothpicks with a name and a astronaut number. So on the toothpicks, they have like A and then a name. So the A, B, C, D relates to what shipment of people they arrive on. This is slightly different to the instruction sheet, and that is completely my fault because I didn't read my own instructions when I was making the flags. So team 1 will be team A, team 2 will be B, team 3 is C, and team 4 is D. The names serve absolutely no purpose whatsoever in relation to the instructions. This is just a great discussion point to see whether or not any of the girls think about whether or not they're putting boys and girls mixed in together, whether they think that's important, whether they, how they want to arrange their humans, how those human interactions play into the ultimate engineering design of their colony. And there is no right and wrong answer for that. That's entirely up to them. But that's something that they can think about and is interesting to see if they do. There's also a whole range of rules. So the ultimate aim of this is to build a colony layout that avoids breaking any of the rules. So the rules here are: 1, the airlock module must be attached to the control module. Bedrooms can only be attached to the living units. So whatever color is used for the living units, that's the only one that the flags can go into. Astronauts should be able to move freely to all modules without exiting the station. So everything needs to be connected together. They can't have to go outside of the station to get to somewhere. Astronauts can only be assigned to a living module that arrived on Mars before they did. Modules should be assembled to the station in the order that they arrived. We don't want to have to disassemble the station to accommodate newly arrived modules. And distance to the communal areas, so that's the control room, greenhouse, kitchen, health block, should be roughly equal for all astronauts from their bedrooms. So it is possible to get a colony that does meet all of these rules. What I would say, they can break rules. That's okay. But what we want them to do is justify why they chose to break that rule. So if the distance to the communal areas isn't completely equal, that's okay. Why did they choose to do it like that? Is that an acceptable solution? If someone only has to walk like a short distance extra, that's probably going to be okay, and they can justify that. And we can show that, you know, engineering can be flexible and we can adapt things and change things. And especially with this, they will probably tear apart their entire colony at some point and restart again once they've learned a little bit more about what they're doing. So as I say, they've got about half an hour to do this. They need to kind of move relatively quickly. So to build everything, they have the plasticine. They also have some bamboo skewers. These will represent the doorways and the links between the different sections. So there should only be so many of those between the sections. Before starting, I would definitely encourage you to get them to separate out all of their blocks. Make sure that they've got all of those modules represented. Use the one color for the communal areas and one for the living units. And also encourage them, or if they haven't got there within sort of the first five minutes, get them to split it into the different shipments. So you want them to separate it into, okay, this is the first set of cargo, this is the first team of humans, this is the next cargo, this is the next humans, so on, so that they know the rough order of when stuff is going to be getting there. And that will help them with the process of figuring out what's going to be there when, so that they're not assigning anything to any astronauts to a module that hasn't arrived yet. And that's pretty much it for that activity. It will take them a while. There is some challenge with this, and they may not reach a solution that meets all the criteria. I haven't got a picture of the final correct assembly right now. I am going to put it together, and then I'll take a picture and email it out to everyone, so that you can have a look. One thing that's really interesting is that a lot of the groups will instantly think of 3D space. So building up is okay as well as building out. So whatever it is that they want to do to build or design that colony, it is their own little world that they're building, which is really interesting to see. But I will take a picture of that. I only have a flat one that I know definitely works, but I will try and get that out to you. If you have a chance to use one of your kits and have a go at the activity yourself before you present it, I would definitely recommend that you have a go at that. That should be okay. And of course, all of these kits are reusable. So if you have another application where you think this activity would fit in well, definitely go for it. I know a few other people really love this activity and they keep going back to it. It is really a lot of fun, and it really gets their creative juices flowing and thinking how people might interact with this living area. And that's pretty much it. Again, if they don't reach that final solution, that's okay, as long as they can kind of explain what it was that they did. So as a wrap up to the building activity, probably want to go around each of the groups and get them to present what it was that they did. Get them to explain if they broke any of the rules or if they created any new rules, and why they did that. And then you can have a little bit more of an in-depth discussion of what were the differences between the colony that broke the most and the least rules. How did the teams organize their colonies differently? Do they all look the same? Where did they start from? Did they start from putting the control module in and then building from that? Or did they start from somewhere else? How did that affect the final solution? Did those vastly different designs achieve the same result? So we wanted to show that there is no single right answer. Multiple different designs can achieve that same goal, and engineering really does allow that room for creativity. Did any of the teams change their design during building? So changing stuff is fine. You don't have to get everything right the first time. Mistakes are okay. Engineering isn't always perfect. We do have that trial and error, and that's perfectly okay. There isn't a black and white answer, especially for this type of problem. With the more complex a problem gets, the more area for different interpretations there are. Again, did any of the teams consider any other factors in their designs? How did they take the human factors into account with the actual astronauts? Are they going to take into account male and female? Do they want separate sleeping areas for different genders? Or did they want to put their friends with friends? Maybe they wanted to try and group all of the astronauts who arrived together in one area. Or maybe they wanted to spread them apart so that in the time in between shipments, people have more space to spread out until someone else joins their area. There's a whole range of things that they can choose to do. When might we use this type of logic in our daily life? So maybe organizing complex schedules, seating plans for big events. Event planning is definitely something interesting. And drawing it back to the Girl Guides side, you can also suggest, well, maybe this type of planning might work for deciding on patrols at camp. So there's a whole range of different things, and you can get them to kind of suggest ideas for that. And then finally, what kind of skills did they use that might be useful for an engineer to have? So that's going to be really dependent on the group and what you see during the activity. So things like teamwork, creativity, problem solving, resourcefulness, helping others. So helping these people to have a comfortable living environment on another planet. That would be really a good one. And once our wrap-up discussion is done, you can really take, depending on the time that you have left, one second, the any meeting just crashed.
Welcome to any meeting.
Hi, I think my computer kind of crashed for a second there.
Your line is now unmuted.
Hi, so my computer crashed for a second there. So I am back. Can everyone hear me? If you can just let me know, that would be great. Yes, okay, so we're back. Okay. So I think I just wrapped up all of the program stuff. So everything there is complete. So once you've finished all of the program stuff, you've had your discussion about what kind of went on during the activity. With this group, if you have time, if you can gather any feedback, that would be fantastic. So to do this, just scraps of paper is fine, or if you have any post-it notes, that's also great. And just pose one question, whatever you think would be best. Something along the lines of, what did you learn about engineering today that you didn't know before? And get their answer on the paper. And then if you can just take a picture of that and then email that to me, that would be fantastic, so that I can gather up all of that information and we can use that to try and refine the program for next year. So that's pretty much it. And then I'm just going to go back to the social media. So we are using social media this year. If you are on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that, the social media hashtag that is being used is NEM 2015. That's National Engineering Month 2015. And you can also use hashtag engineering. And there's a whole range of different people on Twitter that you can tweet to. So things like EWB EOT, that is Engineers of Tomorrow. Myself, at Rosemary Almond, at NEM Ontario, at Engineers Canada, and at Girl Guides to Can. That's Girl Guides to Canada. All of those people are usually really good at retweeting, so that would be fantastic. If you are wanting to take any pictures, that is definitely fine, and we definitely encourage that. Please double check with the guiders before you take any pictures though, and make sure that there's no issues with the photo releases. Otherwise, they'll probably be perfectly okay with that. And finally, the other social media campaign that we're trying to do this year is the engineering selfie. So we're trying to show what makes us excited about being engineers. And to do that, we just want people to kind of take pictures of themselves with something that they designed, built, or did with engineering, and kind of post that with a quick description of the why. Why are we doing this? And use the hashtag engineering selfie. And then challenge someone else so that we can kind of spread this across a little bit. That would be fantastic. And hopefully we can kind of show that, you know, engineers do a whole range of things, and we can really break down some of those stereotypes, which would be great. So that really summarizes everything. So thank you again.